In the world of AI, for the longest time, the race has been all about one thing: size. Bigger models, more data, more computing power. But what if the future of AI isn't about being bigger, but about being smarter? Well, today we are diving into a really fascinating new chapter from Ministral AI that's challenging that whole philosophy.
All right, so here's our roadmap. We're going to start with what I'm calling AI's billion-dollar problem. Then we'll get to meet the new Ministral family of models and uncover their secret sauce, a technique called Cascade Distillation. After that, we'll see how they create these specialized little thinkers, look at some really impressive results, and finally, we'll talk about why this whole shift towards efficient AI matters so much.
So, for the last few years, the main strategy in AI development has been pretty straightforward. Just scale everything up. All the big players are locked in this race to build the most massive models imaginable. The thinking has always been that sheer size is the only real path to getting more and more intelligent. Just throw more compute, more data, and more money at the problem. But this whole approach forces us to ask a really critical question. Is this sustainable? I mean, really? As the costs just keep skyrocketing and the environmental footprint gets bigger and bigger, is this bigger is better approach the only way forward? Or does it just create a massive barrier to entry, making cutting-edge AI available only to a handful of tech giants?
And just to give you a sense of the insane scale we're talking about, a model like Llama 3 was trained on 15 trillion tokens. You can think of a token as a piece of a word. It's a number that's almost impossible to wrap your head around, and it represents a colossal investment in time, money, and resources. This is exactly the trend that Ministral is trying to break.
So, what's Mistral's answer to this massive challenge? Well, instead of trying to build another monster model, they've come up with a whole new family of them, all designed around a completely different principle: powerful efficiency. So, say hello to the Ministral 3 series. And yeah, the name, Ministral, like Mini and Mistral, it pretty much tells you everything you need to know about their whole approach. These things are built from the ground up to be compact, to be efficient, and to be incredibly capable.
And we're not just talking about one model here. It's a whole lineup. You've got 3 sizes, 14, 8, and 3 billion parameters. And you can just think of parameters as the little dials the AI uses to learn. Each of those sizes comes in 3 different flavors: a base model, one tuned for instructions, and a specialist for reasoning. They get their smarts from a larger parent model, they can see images, and, this is a big deal, they are completely open source. So you're probably wondering, how on earth do you make a small model that can think like a really big one? Well, the answer is in their unique training method, something they call Cascade Distillation. This right here is the secret sauce behind the whole thing.
And this analogy is just perfect. Imagine a master sculptor who starts with this huge block of marble. That's the big parent model. They don't just smash it to pieces. They carefully and precisely carve it, refining it down into a smaller but perfectly detailed statue. Cascade Distillation does basically the same thing for an AI, methodically shrinking it while making sure all that valuable knowledge gets passed down.
So the whole process works in this really clever 3-step cycle. First, they prune, or intelligently trim down, the large parent model. Then, they distill all that knowledge into the new, smaller model, using the big one as a teacher. And finally, they just repeat the process, using that newly created 14B model as the starting block to create the 8B model, and so on. It's literally a cascade of knowledge flowing downhill.
This chart is a fantastic illustration of that process. What you're looking at is the model's training loss, which is basically a score of how many mistakes it's making. A lower line is better. Now, see those 2 sharp vertical drops? Bam! Those are the pruning events. That is the exact moment the model is surgically made smaller before it starts learning again, carrying all the wisdom of its parent with it.
But just making them smaller is only half the story. The real magic happens with what they do after this initial training. They take these base models and fine-tune them to create specialized thinkers, each one tailored for a very specific job.
So you've got 2 main variants to understand here. First is the Instruct model. Think of this as your all-around smart assistant. It's fantastic for general conversation and following directions because it's been trained on tons of examples of good conversations. But then you've got the reasoning model. This one is the specialist, the problem solver. It's been trained on data that literally teaches it to think step by step, which makes it a rock star at complex math, coding, and logic puzzles. Different tools for different jobs.
Okay, so the theory sounds great, right? But does it actually work? Can these compact models really compete with their much bigger rivals? Let's take a look at the results because honestly, they are truly impressive.
So right here, we're seeing the 14 billion parameter Ministral base model going head-to-head with Quen's model of the same size. And on benchmarks that test general knowledge, like Trivia QA, and mathematical skill, like the math test, Ministral doesn't just keep up, it actually pulls ahead. It's already showing that it can punch way above its weight class.
Now, this is where it gets really exciting. Arena Hard is a super tough benchmark that basically measures how well a model can have a conversation that humans actually prefer. And just look at these scores. Ministral 14B Instruct is hitting 55.1, leaving competitors like Quen and Gemma way behind in the low 40s. I mean, this isn't just a small win, it's a blowout.
This scatter plot tells such a great story about efficiency. The vertical axis is accuracy, so higher is better. The horizontal axis is how many words the model spits out, so lower is better because it's more concise. Now, you always want to be in that top left corner. And notice where the Ministral models are all clustered? Yep, right where you want to be. They deliver high accuracy without all the extra fluff. That's what peak efficiency looks like.
And that final bit of training, it really makes a huge difference. This chart shows the performance boost they get from the final alignment stage, using a technique called ODPO. This step basically just teaches the AI to have more natural, more helpful conversations. That lighter shaded area on top, that's the performance gain. And for the 14B and 8B models, it provides a massive improvement, making them not just smart, but actually great to talk to.
So let's zoom out for a second and just think about the bigger picture. Why does having smaller, more efficient models matter so much? Because this is way more than just the cool technical achievement. It's a strategic shift for the entire field of AI. So let's tie it all together. The main thing to take away from all this is that Ministral has created these powerfully compact models using a super efficient training method. These little models can compete with, and in some cases even beat, models that are way bigger. And by making them open source, they are helping to democratize access to powerful AI. It really signals a major shift in strategy, away from a brute force bigger is better mindset to a much more elegant one of smarter, not bigger.
And this all leaves us with a really fascinating question for the future. You know, for years, top-tier AI has been locked away in these massive, expensive data centers. But what happens to innovation, to creativity, to problem-solving, when expert-level AI can run on your local machine, accessible to absolutely everyone? That's the future that Ministral 3 is helping to build.